everybody? Michael Cohen here with you on the Sports Talk Nation, and we all know what this is going to be about, obviously, as the story just continues to get wild and wilder, as we are all reacting to the stunning firing of head coach Tom Thibodeau by the New York Knicks earlier this week. I'm going to be completely honest. I am absolutely stunned that this happened. And you know what? Unfortunately, it feels like the same old Knick tricks that we had seen a lot of over the last 25 years where this team just wasn't any good. And I'll say this. Yes, Tom Thibodeau, I know there are fans out there that were not crazy about him. I know there may be players out there who were not crazy about him, depending on what reports you want to believe. But the fact is, this guy came here and did something that no other coach has been able to do in a quarter century. Not just get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Forget that for a second. The Knicks have been irrelevant for almost 2.5 decades. Irrelevant for a very long period of time. This is a team that had gone through head coaches after head coach after head coach, GM after GM after GM. They had 3 different guys with Hall of Fame resumes in the past. Lenny Wilkins, Larry Brown, Phil Jackson. None of them could win here in New York. Okay? The Isaiah Thomas era, what a disaster. In the early 2000s, a complete and total mess, and that all culminated in him coaching this team to 56 wins in 164 games from 2006 to 2008. Complete train wreck. We could go through every coach. 13 different coaches from the time Jeff Van Gundy left this team, resigned at towards the end of the 2001 season. From that point on, up until the day Tom Thibodeau came in during COVID and took over this team in 2020, 13 coaches have tried, 13 failed. So many different executives tried and failed, and a lot of blame, as fans have pointed out, over the years and over the decades, a lot of it squarely on James Dolan for being a guy who gets involved too much in basketball operations. And this team never, during those years, those 25 years, those 20 years almost, rather, saw the light of day, with the exception of a couple years under Mike Woodson, never saw the light of day until Tom Thibodeau showed up. And he changed the culture of this team. I don't care what you say. I understand, look, his defense, you want to talk about the pick apart the defense this year, especially towards the second half of the year, and the lack of depth on the bench, and the fact that he had a 6 or 7 man rotation, same guys all the time. The fact that Karl Anthony Towns struggled in the pick and roll. We can get into all that in just a moment. The fact is, the Knicks went from a basement dweller to a respected franchise to a contender in 5 years under this coach. 400 games. The most games any coach has coached for the Knicks since Jeff Van Gundy did. 400 games, 226 wins, a .565 winning percentage, and he won 4 playoff series. 24 wins in the playoffs. And they got to the playoffs 4 times out of his 5 years here. He was a success. And the fact that the Knicks at that point, after losing the Eastern Conference Finals to a team that is highly underrated in the Indiana Pacers. Too many people bash that team. It amazes me how many people bash the Pacers as kind of this, they're not that great. They were the 4th seed. They had 1 less victory than the Knicks did during the regular season. That's how close those two teams were, okay? They dominated teams in the postseason this year. They dominated the Knicks last year in the postseason. They dominated again this year in the postseason. They have 2 superstar players in Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, and Siakam could be a borderline Hall of Famer, considering he also did this in Toronto for years. They have a Hall of Fame coach in Rick Carlisle. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Indiana Pacers are some joke team that the Knicks lost to. They're not. They're a really good team. So let's just get that narrative out of the way. The Knicks lost to a good team in the playoffs. They lost to a good team in the finals. This is the same Knicks team that came back twice against Boston, 20-point efforts to beat the world champions. And I know it was a world champion team in the Boston Celtics that was hobbled by the end of that series, but they beat them. Beat a young Detroit team. Got to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. Why not run it back with Tom Thibodeau as your head coach? Heck, now that I think about it, this guy was under contract for another 3 years. He just signed a 3-year extension last summer. He was under contract until 2028, and now that he's gone, Knicks are on the hook for another $30 million in guaranteed money. You've got to be kidding me on this. You've got to be kidding me. You knew you were winning. You were winning with this coach. You signed him to an extension last year, end of last year. You have the building blocks of something that's going right, and you blow it up. Not to mention you have your best player in Jalen Brunson emphatically say that he wants Thibodeau to be the head coach, that he is the guy. And the organization decides to go in another direction. Leon Rose, the general manager, of course, the reports coming out early saying that this was his decision and that this was also he received the permission to do so from James Dolan. I wonder how much involved Dolan was in this. I really do. He had to have some say in this, right? He had to have more than saying, oh, yeah, Leon, do whatever you want. Considering what Dolan has done with the Knicks over the years and the mistakes and the missteps that they have made over the years, he had to have some kind of impact on this decision. Absolutely right? Come on. I can't believe for a minute that he didn't have a say in what went on here. He had to. And I understand, again, going back over what happened in this playoff series, the fact that the Knicks did not play good defense in the postseason. They were outscored by 31 points in over 300 minutes in the playoffs. They trailed a lot of times by double digits and huge margins in 12 of their 18 playoff games this year. Their defense was bad. They didn't make a lot of great adjustments. Absolutely. Thibodeau struggled himself in managing the Knicks bench, a bench that, well, compared to Indiana, certainly isn't as deep or as good as that bench. Indiana had like a 9 or 10 man deep roster if you include their bench. Knicks, as I said, only 6 or 7 if you include their bench. So his options were limited, and when he did move guys, sack guys for long periods of time, Brunson would sit for too long during the postseason. So there were certainly criticisms that were warranted here with the way Tom Thibodeau managed the team in the postseason. But is it to the point of a firing? Is it to the point of an offense that he had to go? I don't think so. You can make some changes, make some adjustments, work on it, fix it. Have the players come in and say, hey, look, coach, this is how we think you should change things up in your coaching style. Years ago, another sport, Tom Coughlin, right, was going to be on the hot seat in New York with the Giants, and the players, the owner, everyone kind of got together and say, hey, look, change your style just a little bit. Modernize it just a little bit. He did that, loosened up, and that team went on to win a Super Bowl. And, of course, Tom Coughlin is now recognized as one of the greatest coaches in Giants history. You're telling me that couldn't have happened here? Make a couple of changes, and this is a team that goes from being a contender in the Eastern Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference in general to maybe getting to the finals? Now all the pressure is going to be on what the Knicks do moving forward. There was going to be enough pressure on them moving forward, but now there is a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure now on Leon Rose to get this right. There's even more pressure on James Dolan to get this right. And whoever the next head coach is, I would hate to be the guy who has to step into these shoes. I would hate to be that guy. Because this is going to be a tough job. Because the first losing streak the Knicks have, the first sign of frustration by any players on the bench, it's going to be, hey, the fans are going to start clamoring on social media, saying, hey, you know what, maybe we should have brought Tom Thibodeau back. Maybe they shouldn't have fired him. It's going to be a tough spot for whoever the next head coach is. And already we are starting to see all kinds of rumors and speculation about who the next coach will be. Will it be Jay Wright? No. He's already come out and said, not interested. Will it be Houston's head coach, Houston Rockets head coach, Ime Udoka? Not going to happen. Houston will not let him out of his contract, and they will not let him go talk to the New York Knicks. Forget that. Could it be Jason Kidd, former New Jersey / Brooklyn Nets all-time great player and head coach. Would he come back to New York? Coach Jalen Brunson in Dallas. Would he be the guy to work if the Knicks come up with a deal with the Dallas Mavericks? Would he be the next head coach? Possibly. It's interesting. But again, they would have to work out a deal with Dallas to make that happen. Could it be, and I think the two most likely candidates, there's also now mention here of Mike Brown and Luke Walton as possible names that could be linked to the Knicks. We'll see about that. But the two most likely candidates, Mike Malone, just recently fired by the Dallas Mavericks. Guy who won an NBA title just a couple of years ago with Denver, rather, I should say, with the Denver Nuggets. Won a title with the Denver Nuggets, just recently fired by the Denver Nuggets. Or the man that ended up losing out on the Suns head coaching job, who was an assistant on Thibodeau's staff, and that is Johnny Bryant. And a lot of people think that Johnny Bryant could be the inside track to the head coaching job. We'll see what happens there. If you ask me, Mike Malone probably should be the favorite. Much more experienced, has had a lot of success, decades of success in Denver, turning around that franchise. And getting that team to an NBA title would be a good fit here. He's from Queens. Why not bring him in, be the head coach? But also a guy who butted heads with the GM out in Denver. Does Leon Rose and James Dolan go through that again? I don't know. And if this is any indication of the firing of Tom Thibodeau, chances are they're probably going to want to get somebody who's young. They're going to want to get somebody that they can have some form of a control over, maybe. Some say in personnel and the way that he coaches the team. And, of course, Johnny Bryant, well, he kind of fits that. He's young, never been an NBA head coach. He's been an assistant, top assistant for a while with both New York and now with Cleveland. And, well, he's familiar with this Knicks team. He's familiar with the roster. He's familiar with the coaching staff. That kind of seems like where the Knicks might end up going. We'll see what happens when it's all officially said and done. But the fact is this. Whoever takes over this job is going to have more pressure on him than any coach that I can think of in recent memory that has come here in town. Even Aaron Boone, when he got the job after the Yankees fired Joe Girardi, didn't face and will never face as much scrutiny. And this is the Yankees I'm talking about. The way this next coach will face with the Knicks. And there's been a lot of scrutiny and a lot of criticism of Aaron Boone over the years. Even Carlos Mendoza, who took over for Buck Showalter after that stunning firing just a couple of years ago, has done an outstanding job. People were very open to seeing what he could do, and he's been very good so far up to this point. Mets are, first place, tied for first place in the NL East. But this just feels like, to me, it's another situation where ownership, front office, didn't like the situation where it was going, butted heads with the head coach, and decided to cut bait. And I'm not sure if you want to sit here and say you want to blame the players, you want to blame someone like Karl Anthony Towns, who there's that report saying maybe they didn't get along. I'm not sure. I have no idea. I'm not sure who Thibodeau got along with or without. I don't know. Maybe he rubbed some guys the wrong way. I have no idea. But if you're basing your decision off of those exit interviews, give me a break. There had to be something else that was going on. And there had to be something that was going on for quite some time, because for that to happen just like this, to have that kind of decision after a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals, something else was going on for a while. In fact, there was that rumor floating around even during the first round that could be a bit of a shakeup going on with the Knicks. So I am stunned. I think it's a mistake what the Knicks did. I think it's a vastly disappointing move for them, because I felt like this is a franchise that was building in the right direction. And now, I don't know what the heck's going on here. No one does right now with this team. They are, once again, the Knicks proving to be a conundrum, as they tend to always be in the case in New York, especially now, which is so disappointing, coming off of a nice run here under Tom Thibodeau. So, folks, leave your thoughts below. How do you feel about this situation? I'm not happy about it. You probably aren't happy about it. Nobody should be happy about it. Like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time.